There are a lot of phenomenal looking upcoming gacha games. So many, in fact, that if I were to do a dedicated video listing every single one, it would probably be at least 40 minutes long. With that in mind, I've compiled a list of the 14 gacha games that I'm most excited for, and I've ranked them from the most excited to the least excited. So none of them are bad. None of them are even remotely close to being mediocre. All of them look really freaking good. Now, if this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the little bell notification. That way you remain up to date with every single thing that I post, and I post daily. Do not miss out. Now, for the sake of making this easier to watch so you can see everything, I'm gonna go ahead and move my cam over to the right of the screen, which I know is gonna be very weird for all of you because I'm sure you've never seen my cam over there before. I'm ranking every game from S+ all the way through to C. Once again, there are no bad games here. I would rate all of these games at least, and in terms of anticipation, an 8 out of 10. Let's start this off with Abyss Knights. This is a top-down isometric action game. This looks absolutely incredible. It looks like Path of Exile. It looks like Diablo 4. This is a beautiful looking game with an anime aesthetic that is probably the only top-down isometric game that I am looking forward to. I would rank this probably a B. Next, we have Arknights Endfield. This is a semi-open world, semi-hybrid action game set in the Arknights universe, not on the same world as Arknights is set on. This is likely going to have the same level of storytelling. This isn't going to be, I think, necessarily as action focused as a game like Wuthering Waves, which is perfectly fine because we have a game for that. We actually have multiple games for that. This is instead going to focus more on like world management, resource management, and take things a little slower, which really works for me because, I mean, for every open world gacha game to succeed, they need to do at least something different. I would probably put this in the S category for me. I'm a huge Arknights fan. It's one of the few gacha games that I've actually completed all of the story content for, all of the side story content for. Next, we have Astaweave Haven, which is Hoyoverse's next game after Zenless Zone Zero. This is inspired by Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley. I've done a dedicated video on this if you want to look at it. I've done a dedicated video on every single one of these games. If you're curious more about gameplay, if you're curious more about like just generalized information about them, go and take a look at those videos. Now, Astaweave Haven is Animal Crossing inspired. I don't like Animal Crossing, but I did like Stardew Valley and I do like Harvest Moon and Rune Factory. Hoyo does, however, have a very, very specific level of quality in their gacha games, so I feel like anything that they produce, at the very least, you should be excited to try. It might not be good, but I have hopes that this will at least capture, I don't know, my attention, captivate me in a way that Animal Crossing didn't. So I'd put this at a C. This is arguably the game that I'm least excited for. Next, we have Azur Promilia. This is arguably one of the best looking upcoming gacha games on the horizon. Completely open world, beautiful, crisp, vibrant aesthetics, great looking action combat. You can capture creatures like in Pal World. You have farming, you have housing, you have so many things that no other gacha game out there does. And they're also very good looking characters from what we've seen from the one trailer or two trailers that have been released thus far. This is easily an S+ tier. This is probably one of the best looking gacha games that is coming. There's no more than you could say than that. Plus, I mean, it's done by the Azur Lane developers, Manju. So, I mean, we have a lot to look forward to. Before we go any further, let me take a moment here to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon and my YouTube channel members who allow for me to continue to do dedicated videos like this every single day. You guys are phenomenal, and I can't thank you all enough for the support. Now let's keep talking. Next is Chaos Zero Nightmare, which is done by the Epic 7 developers. I feel like this one's going to be very reminiscent of Epic 7, so it's going to be a lot different from pretty much any other gacha game in this list. It's not going to be open world. It's not going to be action combat, at least that we're aware of. Rather, it's going to feature the same combat systems, feature the same mission system, the same chapter system. As far as we're aware from what little we've seen thus far, The game looks beautiful. It actually looks much more cultured than Epic 7 does. And Epic 7 already looks very cultured. I would probably put this in the A tier because I really actually enjoy Epic 7. I'm curious to see what they come up with here. Next, we have Duet Night Abyss. This is actually from a developer that doesn't really have any other gacha games. It does, however, seem to fit into a niche category where it's not exclusively an action gacha game, but it's also not like a third-person shooter. Rather, it blends third-person shooter and action together into a culmination of genres, and it does both increasingly well. This game looks pretty good. It features a segregated world, so it's kind of like Honkai Star Rail, but it allows you to like reach higher areas. It has both an X and Y axis, like Genshin, like Tower Fantasy, like Wuthering Waves, so it offers a more explorable world, I think, than Honkai Star Rail. I played the beta for this and it was a lot of fun, but it definitely had some room for improvement. I would probably put this in the A category. Then we have Girls Frontline 2, made by the same team as Girls Frontline. This is from what I've seen recently, turning into be a very cultured shooter. There really aren't many, if any, gacha games like this out. And as much as I'd love to say that it definitely focuses on and sets itself apart with its gameplay, it doesn't. What it's doing is focusing on and setting itself apart with its characters, the design of its characters, and the things you can do with them. Yeah, I'd probably put this in the B category. Then we have Neverness to Everness, which is done by the developers of Tower of Fantasy. Now, I know people are going to be like, oh, Stix, you'd probably put that in the F category. Honestly, no. I think Neverness to Everness looks pretty good. It's going to have an open world setting. It's not going to have the same fantasy setting as Tower of Fantasy. Does feature action combat. You can drive a freaking car and potentially run over pedestrians in the street. It looks very cool. It really does. I thought the character models definitely needed some work, and the combat, the animations, and the special effects definitely needed some work. I think that what we saw was early footage, so they do have a lot of room for improvement here, but in terms of how excited I am for it, I'd put this in the A category. For those of you that weren't aware, and I strongly urge you to go check this video out if you haven't already, the NIKKE devs are making a new gacha game. This is going to be an open world gacha game that is inspired by NIKKE, that is set on theoretically a different world in a different time. I mean, I don't know. Very little is known about the game right now. I covered everything in my video, but this could potentially be one of the biggest gacha games ever. With the level, the degree of culture in NIKKE and Stellar Blade, which are the two games that they released, and also Destiny Child, we can't forget about that, and the level of storytelling, the level of voice acting, the quality of all of this, along with what could arguably be insane, like first-person, third-person shooter action gameplay in an open world setting? Dude. Easy S+ tier. Another game that I'm not sure you guys know about, but I did just do a video on a couple days ago, Project KV, also known as Blue Sword or Blue Katana or Blue Scroll, is an upcoming gacha game from the original, or ex-developers rather, of Blue Archive. It features a dormitory, an academy, lots of schoolgirls. It is going to probably have a similar setting, feature similar, well, we actually don't know the kind of gameplay for the game. Yeah, we don't know if it's going to feature chibi graphics like Blue Archive or if it's going to feature 3D graphics. Either way, this is going to also potentially be freaking incredible. I am unbelievably excited for this. I'd also put this in the S+ tier. I love Azur Lane. I love NIKKE. I love Blue Archive. I also love Arknights. They're 4 of my like 10 favorite gacha games. Then we have Project Mugen, which released a trailer, set the entire gacha scene ablaze. People were like, oh my god, this looks incredible, whoa! And then like a year later, there's still only that one trailer. So, I don't know. It's supposed to be an open world, like urban gacha with action combat. And yeah, I'm excited based off of what I've seen, but like, I wish I could say more. I'd probably put this in the A category as well because it does look like it could be cool. Maybe. Project Nami comes up next. Project Nami, of course. Once again, go watch my video on Project Nami. This is another gacha game created by Kudo Games, people that made Punishing Gray Raven and Wuthering Waves. This is, in theory, an open world action game, so it could potentially be even bigger, even better than Wuthering Waves. And outside of that, very little is known. People were speculating that it was going to be inspired by Gravity Rush 2, but I debunked that in a video. Another gacha game from Kudo. After the immaculate creation of Wuthering Waves, dude, easy S+. This isn't even a question. Once again, Punishing Gray Raven is one of my 10 favorite gacha games. This should just be a list of like the companies that make my favorite gacha games that are also making new gacha games. Then we have Unending Dawn. Unending Dawn is an open world, like Elden Ring, Dark Souls inspired gacha game that looks really freaking good. Like, it doesn't necessarily have character models that look as good as like any of the other S+ tier games up here or the S tier either, but at the same time, its characters do look good, its world looks good, but its combat looks messed up. Like, it will leave you messed up after playing through it. This is by far one of the games I'm most excited for, but combat aside, I feel like everything definitely still needs some work to get me to that level of hype that the other games have me at. And finally, Xunjing the Realm. This is a very interesting third-person open world shooter. So kind of like Duet Night Abyss, kind of like Snowbreak if Snowbreak were open world. This is very Nier Automata inspired. This looks fantastic. This is a kind of like a dark, messed up theme that none of the other games here seem to fall into the category of, which is why I'm including it here, because I love it when games try new things, and this game seems like it is, regardless of where it falls. I put this in the S category because I am very excited to see what happens with it, as long as it don't mess it up. Now, those are my 14 most anticipated upcoming gacha games, ranked in order of most excited to least excited. Let me know down in the comments below, though, what yours are. Hey you, where do you think you're going? Sit back down. Don't you dare close out of this tab. Instead, go ahead and click one of these two videos on screen right now. Yeah, that's what I thought.